This past weekend, if you were with us, we completed Revelation 15 and 16. And if in Revelation 15, you see really a preface to the coming judgment that you see in Revelation 16. In Revelation 15, you see the saints of God about to erupt in a song. Now, these saints, I don't believe are the saints or Christians throughout all human history. I think these are the saints of the tribulation period. These are people that came to Christ during the tribulation period and were executed or martyred because of their faith in Christ. And they are about to sing a song. They're going to erupt in the song. And it's the Song of Moses. It's the song that you see in Exodus 15. And the song is important in Revelation because it tells us and reminds us of two important truths. It's like a twofold truth. That in Exodus 15, you see the Israelites sing the Song of Moses. A part of that song is a song about how God delivers and how God saves his people. God redeems his people, but specifically, it's like God saves them and delivers them from injustice. He hears their cries and he saves. But it's not just a deliverance from injustice. It's actually what? It's also that God is going to consume their adversaries. That God is going to judge their enemies. Because in Exodus 15, what does he do? God consumes the Egyptians in the Red Sea. And so they are singing about God's deliverance of injustice and God's judgment upon their enemies. And that's what you see in Revelation 16. God is going to judge his enemies. And so in Revelation 16, these bold judgments, it is the finality of God's wrath. It is the pouring out of God's wrath. Now, if you've been with us over this series, what you've seen is that I hold to a futurist interpretation, meaning that I see these judgments that we see throughout Revelation as linear, as sequential. And so Revelation 6 are the seal judgments. And Revelation 8 and 9 are the trumpet judgments. And Revelation 16 are the bowl judgments. And so that I see them as happening in sequence or in order. That's why I liken them to child pangs or child labor pangs. That when a woman is about to give birth, that she's going to, they get these contractions, they get more intense and they get more frequent. They get more intense, they get more frequent. And ultimately you have new life. And I would say you see the new life in Revelation 19 when Jesus returns. So that would be kind of a futurist interpretation of those judgments. They are sequential and they happen in order. Now, those who hold to a different interpretation, like the idealist interpretation, don't see these judgments, the seals, the trumpets, the bowls, as sequential. They're not meant to be seen as linear events. So rather than a temporal sequence, they would say there's a literary sequence. In other words, even though we see, it might look like they're meant to be seen as temporal, because John will say, and after this I saw, and then I saw. And so they would say, no, they're not meant to be seen as like a temporal sequence. They're meant to see as a literary sequence, meaning, and then John saw vision A, and then John saw vision B, and then John saw vision C. And vision A doesn't necessarily need to occur before vision B or vision C, but rather that these are the same thing, just happening from a different perspective. They're the same event, just from a different vantage point. And so they're not meant to be, like the idealists would say, it's not meant to be seen as distinct events. Rather, they are just different perspectives of the same event. And I can understand how they come to that conclusion. Because if you look at the trumpet judgments and the bowl judgments, in a lot of ways, there's a lot of overlap, a lot of similarity, right? And so like you see in the second trumpet judgment, like a third of the sea life is destroyed, whereas in the bowl judgments, all of sea life is destroyed. And then you see a third of the water is contaminated. And then in the bowl judgment, all the water is contaminated. They're saying, like, that's the same thing. It's just seen from a different perspective. And so I just wanted to give you kind of two different interpretations. I hold to the futurist interpretation, but I understand how those who hold to an idealist interpretation come to that conclusion. And the reason that I'm not bothered by the idealist interpretation is because ultimately both the futurist and the idealist is going to come to the central truth of what John is trying to show us. Like, what's the big idea that God is trying to communicate? What's the timeless truth? We're both going to come to that same conclusion, right? Throughout these judgments that you are seeing, what is God doing? One, it's reminding us, just like the Song of Moses, it is reminding us that God is going to deliver his people, right? He's going to save. He's going to redeem. He's going to redeem them from the injustices. But not just that God is going to consume his enemies. And so we will come to the same timeless truth, right? That God will ultimately, he will put down evil, and God will ultimately reign in righteousness, and we are going to be with him. So join us this weekend as we look at the challenging chapters of Revelation 17 and 18. See you this weekend.